He dropped the briefcase at her feet like it was nothing. 30 million, Adrian Cross said, his voice cold and sharp like winter air. Marry me, no questions. Lena stared at the briefcase, then back at him, blinking through the rain. She could still feel the hunger twisting in her belly from skipping breakfast. Her sneakers were falling apart. Her backpack was heavier than her hope, but she didn't move, not even when the paper bills peeked from the half-opened case, mocking her empty pockets. She wiped the rain from her face with the back of her hand and tilted her head, studying him. Tall, clean-cut, eyes like polished ice. The kind of man who had probably never heard the word no in his life. You think money can fix everything, don't you? Lena said finally, voice steady. Adrian's lips curled into the kind of smile rich men wore when they believed they already owned you. Money fixes most things, he replied. She laughed softly, not the sweet kind of laugh he might have expected. It was bitter, rough, the laugh of someone who had seen life chew up promises and spit out regrets. You don't know me, she said, kicking the briefcase back toward him with her worn-out shoe. And you don't know what you're buying. Adrian shrugged like he didn't care. You fit what I need. That's enough. Lena crossed her arms, feeling the rain soak deeper into her jacket. And what exactly do you need? He took a step closer, his cologne battling the city's smell of wet concrete and old grease. A wife, he said simply. Temporary. 6 months. In exchange for freedom from a family contract I didn't agree to. She stared at him, her mind racing. This wasn't a fairy tale. This wasn't a joke. It was real. 30 million. A fake marriage. 6 months. It was everything she could ever need. A home, security, a chance to never be helpless again. But it was also a trap. Nobody gives that kind of money without expecting to own you. Lena smiled sweetly, the way she had learned, to smile when danger smelled like perfume. You think I'm some desperate street rat? She said quietly. Adrian didn't flinch. He didn't deny it either. She shook her head slowly. Here's the thing, Mr. Cross, Lena whispered, stepping close enough to see the slight crack in his perfect arrogance. I might be broke. I might be dirty. I might even be alone in this whole damn world. She smiled wider, a dangerous, beautiful smile. But I'm not stupid. She turned, her soaked backpack swinging behind her, and walked away into the rainy night, leaving $30 million lying in a puddle at Adrian Cross's feet. And for the first time in his powerful, untouchable life, Adrian realized he wasn't dealing with a girl. He was dealing with a storm. Adrian Cross wasn't used to being ignored. He wasn't used to standing in the rain like an idiot while a girl, a street girl, walked away from $30 million like it was. Pocket change. He stood there for a long second, the rain soaking into his tailored jacket, his mind spinning in a way it hadn't in years. She'll come back, he muttered. Everyone always came back when the money was right, but Lena didn't. The crowd swallowed her, the city lights blurred, and she was gone. For the first time in a very long time, Adrian felt something strange clawed his chest, curiosity, annoyance, and something dangerously close to respect. He clicked his tongue in frustration and got back into his car. Find her, he barked at his driver. Tonight. The driver nodded nervously and sped off into the glittering darkness. Meanwhile, Lena leaned against a cold brick wall in an alley 2 streets over, breathing hard. She hadn't run because she was scared. She had run because deep down, for one terrifying moment, she had almost said yes. 30 million could fix everything. A roof over her head. Food. Freedom from begging, from scraping by, from being invisible. But Lena knew better than to trust deals made in the dark. Especially deals offered by men who looked at people like they were disposable. She wasn't disposable. Not anymore. Her hands trembled slightly as she wiped the rain from her forehead. No price is worth losing yourself, she whispered to herself, hugging her backpack tighter. Not even 30 million. Across the city, Adrian's men combed the streets. They checked homeless shelters, diners, back alleys. Sir, no sign of her. One bodyguard reported through the car radio an hour later. Adrian sat back in his seat, staring out the window at the dripping world outside. A tiny, twisted smile touched the corner of his mouth. Interesting, he murmured. He wasn't angry. Not yet. In fact, he was starting to enjoy the challenge. Most girls would have been throwing themselves into his arms for a fraction of what he had offered. But Lena had looked him dead in the eye and said no, not because she didn't want the money. But because she refused to sell herself. She wasn't just a street girl, she was a fighter, and Adrian Cross had just found the first woman he couldn't predict, couldn't manipulate, couldn't own. He leaned forward, his voice calm, but deadly serious. Find her, he repeated to his team. I don't care how long it takes. Because now, it wasn't just about a contract. It was about her, and Adrian Cross didn't lose. Ever. The next night, Lena was back at her usual corner, selling cheap keychains and fake sunglasses to passers-by. Her hoodie was pulled low, her sneakers were still soaked from yesterday, and her heart, well, it beat a little faster every time a black car passed by. But she refused to show it. She refused to believe that Adrian Cross would waste his precious time chasing a girl like her. She was nobody, a ghost on the streets, or so she thought. The crowd thinned out around midnight. The streetlights flickered like tired eyes, and then she heard it, the soft, clean click of expensive shoes on wet concrete. Lena didn't have to turn. She knew it was him. A shadow fell over her stall. A cold, familiar voice sliced through the night. You're harder to find than a missing diamond. Lena closed her eyes for a brief second, steadying her breath. Then she turned around, face blank. Adrian stood there, hands in pockets, rain sliding down the perfect line of his jaw. No guards this time, no bodyguards. Just him. You again, Lena said dryly. Adrian tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle missing half the pieces. You ran from $30 million, he said. Most people would call that insanity. Lena shrugged, wiping a drip of rain from her forehead. Maybe I'm not most people. Adrian smirked. Clearly. They stared at each other, two forces, refusing to bend. For a moment, the noise of the city faded, the lights blurred, only their breathing, the rain, and the sharp tension between them remained. You're stubborn, Adrian said finally. You're arrogant, Lena shot back. He smiled, not the fake billionaire smile for cameras, but a real one, a dangerous one. I like stubborn, he said softly. It means you're smart enough to know when something's wrong. Lena folded, her arms. And yet here you are, offering me the wrong thing all over again. Adrian stepped closer, so close she could smell the expensive cologne under the rainwater. I'm not offering marriage for romance, he said quietly. I don't believe in fairy tales, Miss Lena. Good, she replied sharply, because I don't believe in selling myself. For a moment, just a flicker, something vulnerable passed across Adrian's face. Then it was gone. 30 million. 6 months. You walk away richer than you ever dreamed, he said, his voice low. No strings, no expectations. Lena bit her lip hard, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. This money. It wasn't just for her. It was for the future she always dreamed about. For the sister she left behind in another state. For the life no one believed she could build. She swallowed hard. You're serious? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Adrian's blue eyes locked onto hers. Dead serious. The rain poured harder now, like the heavens were waiting for her answer. And Lena. Lena realized something dangerous. This wasn't just a deal. This was a game. A game where if she wasn't careful, she wouldn't just lose her pride, she could lose her heart. And she wasn't sure she was ready for that battle. Not against a man. Like Adrian Cross. Not against a man who looked at her like he wanted to win. Not just the deal, but her soul. The rain slowed to a drizzle, leaving the streets slick and shining like black glass. Lena stared at Adrian, this man who had everything and still looked like he owned nothing inside. She could feel it now. Beneath all that arrogance and wealth, he was empty, just like her. But she was tired of life happening to her. This time, if she was going to jump into the fire, it would be on her own terms. She tightened her grip on her backpack, breathed out slowly, and looked him dead in the eye. "I'll marry you," she said. Adrian's eyebrow lifted slightly. He hadn't expected her to fold so easily, but then Lena smiled. A slow, sharp smile. "Under 3 conditions," she added. Adrian crossed his arms, amused. "I'm listening." Lena held up her fingers one by one. "First," she said, her voice strong, "I don't change who I am. No fancy clothes, no fake smiles. If you want a doll, go find another girl." Adrian's mouth twitched like he wanted to smile but fought it. "Fine," he said. "What else?" "Second," Lena continued, "my freedom is mine. I go where I want, when I want. No bodyguards breathing down my neck." Adrian leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You do realize you're about to become Mrs. Adrian Cross, right? You'll be the target of half the city." Lena didn't blink. "That's your problem, not mine." Adrian chuckled softly under his breath. "Noted," he said, eyes glinting with something dark and fascinated. "And third," Lena paused, feeling the weight of her final demand. "Third," she said, voice dropping, "this deal ends on my terms. If you break your word, if you lie, if you disrespect me in any way, the marriage ends. No questions, no games." Adrian studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and then, slowly, he offered his hand. "You've got yourself a deal, Miss Lena." Lena looked at his hand, then back at his eyes. Not trust, not warmth, just business, just survival. She shook his hand once, firm and fast. "Good," she said. Inside, though, her heart was screaming because no matter how many conditions she set, she knew the truth. No amount of rules could protect her heart from a man like Adrian Cross, and somewhere deep inside, she already felt the first crack forming. The wedding wasn't grand. It wasn't dripping in diamonds or flashing with celebrity photographers. It was cold. It was business, exactly the way Adrian Cross had planned it. Lena stood stiffly under the heavy white dress he insisted she wear, feeling like a stranger in her own skin. She had dreamed once, as a little girl, about walking down the aisle in a dress filled with love, laughter, family clapping and crying. But today, only silence filled the small hall. 2 witnesses, both hired. No flowers, no music. Just a paper, a pen, and 2 signatures. When the priest said, "You may now kiss the bride," Adrian didn't move. Neither did Lena. They simply nodded at each other like 2 strangers sealing a business contract. It was done, Mrs. Lena Cross. $30 million would be transferred to her new private account by morning, and yet standing there, with her hand still cold in Adrian's, Lena felt no victory, only a sharp, empty ache growing deep in her chest. Later that night, at Adrian's penthouse, Lena stood by the wide glass window overlooking the city. Lights blinked below like restless fireflies. The air smelled like expensive cologne and steel. Adrian poured himself a drink without offering her one. Good. She wouldn't have accepted it anyway. He leaned back on the giant sofa, tie loose, eyes half closed. "You're free to use any guest." "Room you want," he said casually. "I'm not interested in playing husband." Lena didn't flinch. She nodded once, turned away, and disappeared down the hallway without another word. But inside her chest, something twisted painfully. Not because she wanted him. No, because deep down, even a fighter like Lena had hoped, just maybe, someone would see her as more than just a deal someday. The twist hours later, as Lena unpacked the few belongings she had, she found an envelope shoved deep inside her backpack. It wasn't hers. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a single, folded letter, and when she read the first line, her knees buckled. "Lena, you were never supposed to survive this deal." Her heart pounded painfully in her chest. The letter continued. Adrian Cross needed a wife, yes, but not just any wife. He needed someone disposable, Someone the world wouldn't miss when she disappeared after 6 months. Tears blurred Lena's vision. She read further. You're not his partner. You're his cover. A pawn. And when the time is right, you won't just be alone. You'll be gone. The letter dropped from her hands. She stumbled back, heart racing, cold sweat breaking out all over her body. Was this real? Was this some sick game? She heard footsteps outside her room. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Lena's breath caught. In that moment, she knew she wasn't just trapped in a fake marriage, she was trapped inside a deadly game, and the clock had just started ticking. Lena didn't sleep that night. She sat in the dark corner of her guest room, clutching the letter with shaking hands, her mind racing 1,000 miles a minute. Was it true? Was she really nothing but a pawn in Adrian's cold, twisted game? She thought about the way he never smiled, the way he looked at her like a transaction, the way he offered her millions. Without blinking, all the signs had been there. She just hadn't wanted to believe them. But now she had no choice. At exactly 3 a.m., Lena stood up. Quietly, she slipped out of her room and padded down the marble hallway barefoot. The penthouse was silent except for the hum of the city far below. She found him sitting in the living room, still awake, a glass of dark whiskey in his hand. He didn't even look surprised to see her. Couldn't sleep, Mrs. Cross? Adrian said lazily, swirling his drink. Lena stepped forward, every muscle in her body trembling, not with fear but with fury. She threw the letter onto the table in front of him. It slid across the glass and stopped at his hand. Adrian's eyes flickered down. Read the first few lines, and something changed in his face. No fake charm, no smooth arrogance, just cold, hard calculation. You were never supposed to find that, he said finally, voice low. Lena's heart cracked wide open at those words. No denial, no apology, just confirmation. You used me, she whispered, barely recognizing her own voice. You planned to get rid of me. Adrian leaned back, exhaling like he was tired of the conversation already. You think marriages in my world are built on love? He said bitterly. They're built on power, on control, on survival. And I was... What? A placeholder? Lena choked out. A convenient face until you could throw me away? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence was louder than a gunshot. Lena felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them back hard. No, she wouldn't cry in front of him. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. You picked the wrong girl, Mr. Cross, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. Adrian studied her quietly, something dark and restless shifting behind his eyes. You could have had the money, the freedom, he said softly. You could have walked away richer than you ever dreamed. But I would have walked away empty inside, Lena snapped. And I'd rather be poor and alive than rich and dead. They stared at each other across the wide, cold room, two broken souls, two enemies trapped inside the same nightmare. Finally, Adrian set down his glass, his fingers tapping lightly against the table. Then what now, Mrs. Cross? He asked, voice almost bored. Lena straightened her spine, her heart hammering like a drum. Now, she said, now I fight back. Fight back. Lena didn't waste time crying after that night. Tears were for the weak, and Lena had learned the hard way. Weakness gets you killed. The very next morning, while Adrian slept in his cold penthouse suite, Lena packed her small backpack and slipped out quietly, not to run away. No. She was done running. She had a bigger plan now. She needed allies, information, a way to turn the game around, because if Adrian Cross thought she was just going to disappear, quietly, he had another thing coming. The city looked different in the morning light. Lena pulled her hoodie tight and melted into the crowd like a shadow. She knew where to go. Old friends. Old debts. People who owed her favors from the streets, the kind of people billionaires like Adrian would never think mattered. At a rundown cafe tucked between two abandoned warehouses, she found him. Mike, a hacker with dirty sneakers and a brain sharper than any lawyer Adrian could buy. Mike grinned when he saw her. Well, 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 look who finally got tired of playing princess. Lena slammed a wad of cash on the table. I need everything you can find on Adrian Cross, she said. Mike raised an eyebrow. That rich boy? What you planning, Lena? She leaned, her voice a whisper sharp as a knife. I'm planning to destroy him, from the inside. Mike's smile widened. I like this version of you. He scooped up the cash and nodded. Give me 48 hours. Back at the penthouse, Adrian woke up to an empty house. For a second, a flicker of panic rushed through him. Had she run? Had she disappeared like smoke? But when he entered the kitchen, he found a small piece of paper taped to the fridge. In Lena's messy handwriting, it said, You started this game, Mr. Cross. Now watch me finish it. Adrian crumpled the paper in his fist, his jaw clenching hard. For the first time, he realized something that made his blood run cold. He hadn't married a helpless street girl. He had married a storm, and the storm was coming for him. 2 days later, the Yal. Ballroom glittered with chandeliers and polished gold. Billionaires, politicians, celebrities, all gathered under one roof for Adrian Cross's charity gala, the perfect event to show the world how powerful he was, the perfect place for Lena to bring it all crashing down. She walked into the gala like a flame, cutting through fog. No hoodie tonight. She wore a simple black dress, no jewels, no fake smiles, just fire in her eyes. As Lena moved through the crowd, people turned to stare, not because of her beauty, but because of the power pouring off her like heat. She found Adrian near the center, laughing coldly with a group of men in suits. He caught sight of her, and for the first time since she met him, Lena saw something she had never seen before in Adrian Cross's eyes. Fear. She smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. Mike had delivered everything she needed, the hidden deals, the offshore accounts, the dirty contracts Adrian thought no one would ever find. In her small clutch bag, she carried a flash drive, the ultimate weapon, and tonight, she would use it. When Adrian approached her, his voice was low, urgent. What are you doing here? Lena tilted her head sweetly. Just enjoying the party, she said. His jaw tightened. He reached for her arm, but Lena stepped back. No touching, she said coldly. You married me to disappear, remember? She leaned closer, whispering so only he could hear. Instead, I'm about to make you unforgettable. Adrian's hand clenched into a fist at his side. You'll destroy yourself too, he warned. If you drag me down, you go with me. Lena smiled wider. Maybe. But at least I go down fighting, not hiding like a coward. Before he could stop her, Lena walked up to the center stage where the microphone stood. The room fell silent. Hundreds of rich, powerful eyes turned to her. Lena took a deep breath, held up the flash drive, and smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice clear and strong, tonight we aren't just raising money for charity. We're also revealing the truth about the man hosting this event. Adrian stepped forward, panic flashing in his eyes for the first time. But it was too late. Mike, hidden in the tech booth, uploaded the drive's contents to the giant screen. Behind Lena, emails, bank transfers, illegal deals, every dirty secret Adrian had tried to bury. The crowd gasped. The press started snapping pictures. Phones came out. Live streams started buzzing. Adrian stood frozen, a king stripped of his crown. And Lena stood tall, proud, unstoppable. She didn't wait for the chaos to explode. She turned on her heel, walked straight out of the ballroom, and never looked back. 1 year later, somewhere far away from the cold city lights, Lena rocked gently on a porch swing. The small house behind her smelled of fresh paint and hope. In her arms, she held her baby, a little girl with Adrian's piercing blue eyes and Lena's unbreakable spirit. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered softly, You don't need a kingdom to be a queen, my love. You just need a heart too wild to be bought. And under the setting sun, as the world turned quietly golden, Lena, finally smiled, not the smile of survival, not the smile of revenge, but the smile of a woman who had lost everything, fought like hell, and built herself back up with her own 2 hands. A smile that no man, no money, and no betrayal could ever take away again.